Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. As promised last week, it is time for our fourth quarter 2022 review here for World of Warships. Yes, I'm still behind, but this video will finally get me all caught up. Will finally be current as of, well, 10 weeks ago, and then in about another 2 or 3 weeks, I'll get one out for first quarter 2023, and then we'll be back on schedule, just like we should have been, right? Yikes, it's been that kind of year. All right, guys, so quick refresher as we do. We'll take a quick spin through each patch, just a one-slide summary, just refresh ourselves what went on in that quarter that might or might not be impacting the population numbers that we're going to look at a little later in the video. Timestamps are down below if you want to just skip ahead of the server population stuff. That's all available. So let's have a peek as we start looking at update 11.9 in early October. Of course, the long-awaited official release, testing complete, mechanics done, submarines finally come to World of Warships. I know by the number of eyes that just rolled as I said that, right? A whole bunch of you just went, oh, God. Exactly. This is going to be one of the most controversial things they're ever going to do to the game, right? It's been controversial ever since these ships went into testing, what, 2.5 years ago. I feel like summer of, was it Halloween 19 was the first time we got a glimpse that this might be coming, or was it Halloween of 20? I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look. I just know it's been coming for a long time. They've been through a lot of iterations, and for me, for my money, at the end of the day, submarines are still not interesting to play. Which pains me to say. It pains me to say, because you would be hard-pressed to find a bigger fanboy of the American silent service of World War II than I. I grew up with it, right? I have books on my shelf about Gene Fluckey and Red Ramage and Dick O'Kane and Mush Morton. These guys were my heroes. They're the reason that I wanted to be a submariner. That's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a career naval officer and go drive submarines. Yes, I would have been a squid if they'd let me. They didn't. Pro tip. Spoiler alert. But yeah, for all the work and time, for me at least, these things just missed the mark horribly. And the player base in general is not accepting of these. I lovingly refer to submarines as cockroaches. And they're fun because they're fun to step on when you play a destroyer, right? But yeah, they're here now, and I think we're going to continue to be seeing the repercussions of this decision for quite some time. Now, one of the fun things that did come out of submarines coming to the game is that we got a new operation, a Wolfpack operation. Now, I played this for the first time on stream just last week or the week before. It's actually kind of fun. Like, that's the kind of place that submarines are interesting, right? You've got 6, 7 submarine players, wolf packing, blowing up ships, and that was actually, I actually really enjoyed the operation, honestly. But submarines in random battles, man, get that noise out of here and keep it away. Of course, in their ongoing efforts to integrate submarine play, we now had to add automatic anti-submarine warfare for aircraft carriers. Now, I could do a whole tirade about why I hate this, right? But I won't. The short version is that I hate this because anti-submarine warfare should be the purview of a handful of ships, a specific subset of ships in the game, in any game. Here's the problem. The matchmaker cannot seemingly put submarines and destroyers in a game at the same time. And so, because you'll see some games with subs and no destroyers, and your mind just explodes. What is happening? And so, in an effort for the submarine versus carrier interaction to be less lopsided, carriers now have automatic ASW. Now, I understand all the gameplay reasons for it. We can talk game balance until we're blue in the face. But for me, as a player, I still hate it because I hate it. I just hate it. If you have a carrier on the board, that should be an asset that you have to protect. And if that means that you have to search out that submarine, or don't let him sail through the middle of the board, or take a destroyer and go back and escort your carrier, then for the love of Pete, do it, right? Like, yeah, I realize it's random battles, and no, that isn't necessarily fun, but come on, man. Like, ugh. Anyway, I'm going to stop now. Halloween operations returned. Of course, it was October. We had Halloween ops. Puerto Rico's still in the dockyard over the course of this patch. People trying to finish that up. I'm glad they brought Puerto Rico back. She is such a fun ship to play. Guys, I really, really hope you manage to pick one of these up. It's a better Alaska. And Alaska's already a really good ship, and Puerto Rico is just, oh, so good. I love driving my Puerto Rico. She's so much fun. Another amazing ship that came out during this patch, of course, a near and dear to my heart ship. Yet another Fletcher entered the game in the form of Tier 9 Premium Greek destroyer HNS Velos. She's very different from the other Fletchers, and I like that about her. I mean, in some ways she's not, but in some ways she is. And but either way, I really enjoy it. She's still a Fletcher. She handles great. She has fun torps. The depth charges are amazing. Like, there's just so much to like about this ship. I missed this at the time. Somehow, I guess in the midst of King of the Sea and traveling back and forth to Europe and all the rest of this, they tested cross-server matchmaking. Now, either I missed this or just completely forgot about it. But when I was going back through patch notes, I realized what a monumental admission, a monumental change this is. I hinted on this the last quarterly review video that we did, right? One of the reasons that I believe, again, this is my belief, I do not have evidence or proof or numbers, okay? But one of the reasons that I believe we're seeing so many bizarro, wacky, wonky, mind-blowingly bad matchmaking things happening in World of Warships right now is because of server populations, is because the game is maturing, right? We're now over the 7-year mark, combined with some of the game design decisions actively pushing players out of the game. We're seeing server populations drop to a point where matchmaking things are getting stranger. And so at the same time we're reducing server populations, we're adding more complexity into the matchmaking algorithms. We're adding super ships, which have to be mirror matched. We're adding submarines, which have mirror matchmaking. It's just, right? It's kind of mind-blowing. And matchmaking, you can tell it is struggling. And so when I read this in the patch notes, I went, aha, I missed this. To me, this is like finding that little nugget of gold in a big giant field because it's important and it tells you something. And this tells me, when I read this note, I thought, this is it. This is Wargaming's acknowledgement, their realization that the matchmaking algorithm is not going to survive the server populations that they've been seeing lately, and they're trying to take steps to, I won't say to fix it, because I'm not sure you can fix server populations, but like to alleviate the impact of it, right? One of the benefits of Warships being a global title is that prime time in the NA server is low time in EU and Asia. Prime time in those servers, prime time in Asia is still probably low time in EU and NA. The bottom line is that if you try to plot out the rough geographical regions that each server draws their populations from, each of them is staggered about 6 to 8 hours apart around the globe. And trust me, I can speak from experience when I say this. Coordinating players across those kinds of time zones is a massive pain in the ass because we've been dealing with it for King of the Sea for years. But it affords Wargaming a golden opportunity here. If they can make this work, it should, I'm going to caveat this because I'm not the guy doing it, it should help smooth out some of the ridiculous matchmaking shenanigans we're starting to see as the game suffers a little bit in terms of population. I want to believe that can happen so that if you're playing off-peak in Europe, it's peak time in Asia, you're pulling from their 12,000 players versus your 3,000 players, and now all in you've got a pool of 15,000. That's a much more balanced pool to be drawing and generating better matchmaking from. I want to believe that's what this is going. But I had missed this the first time. I feel like that's a really, really important thing for them to test. Of course, back in 11.9, we also added Vallejo to the armory for steel. A ship I haven't played very much. I don't even think I've ever tested it. It just looks very underwhelming on paper. And then, of course, we had Patrie and Edgar released into the tech tree for super ships. Edgar being the Super Minotaur, and Patrie being, well, I was going to call her a Super Republique, but honestly, Patrie is really a Super Burgogne. So that's really how that works. Two quick balance tweaks. Saw some changes to the unique commanders. That's Russia's Kuznetsov and the UK's Cunningham. And then there were some other commander skill changes and tweaks, some minor things, just to kind of balance a few things out that I won't say they mostly went unnoticed, but none of them was particularly egregious or unwelcome in my mind. All right, as we head on into 11.10 in November, of course, we get early access to the Japanese light cruiser line. This line has been a bit of a mixed bag for me, and I had a video earlier this week where I kind of talk about why I feel that way. I'd be curious to see what you guys think of the Japanese light cruisers. I suppose I should go back and check a few more of the comments on that particular video. But for me, these ships, I was expecting, like I said in that video, a line of Mogamis, and that is unfortunately not what we got. Only one patch of early release, and then the American and German submarine lines came directly to the tech tree in November. I mean, I said last patch was really the official release, and it really was, right? But tech tree release here of those ships, so available to everybody. No more tokens or anything. They added the Battle Pass system back in November. This one I think is still a little controversial. I was having a conversation about this in the comment section of a video recently, a couple weeks ago, I think. For my part, I like this change. I understand the viewpoint of people that don't, because it does feel like I have not run the numbers. Somebody smarter than me with more time would have to crunch the numbers if they haven't been done already. But it does feel a little bit like it's designed to maybe milk a little bit more doubloons, cash, whatever, out of the player base for something that you were kind of already getting for free. However, from my perspective, for somebody like me who has limited time to invest in the game, but really nothing to spend money on, or at least nothing particularly amazing to spend money on, I'm happy to throw some doubloons at it. Full disclosure, we get the fancy one for free as community contributors. Okay, so like whatever the high-end one is, we get that for free now. But when this first came out, we didn't. And I was like, you know what? I'm happy to invest doubloons in this because it means I can earn some steel and some research points. I don't really play clan battles anymore. And I'm getting like maximum bonuses, like maximum rewards for the time that I am investing. I'm able to get through the various stages of these things faster. So again, I understand why it's not universally loved. For somebody like me who has only a little bit of time to invest in the game these days, I think it's really handy. But I also think it's nice that it's a monthly thing. You know, like premium time and Battle Pass. If you have a month, it's like, you know what, I'm going to spend a lot of time playing boats this month. You can set aside some time and some money, 10, 15 bucks, sink that into the Battle Pass and premium time, and probably make a lot of good progress. And then it's like, okay, I'm done now. I've hit my boats quota for a while and come back to it later. And you know, you're not out a ton of money. We had a new round of clan battles. If this is still your bag, of course, carriers and subs still not allowed in clan battles, which begs the question, why are they in randoms? But that's a whole other video. We had a round of brawls come through in November. And then this was an interesting change, something else that I had missed as I was going back through the patch notes. You know, now that they're basically enabling players to earn research points in a lot of different ways from a lot of different sources. You're now, apparently before, you know, when the Research Bureau was added 2 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago, they had gated that behind, I think, 5 or 6 Tier 10 ships. You had to have X number of Tier 10 ships to even unlock Research Bureau access. But apparently, and this was something that I missed, you couldn't even earn research points until that point. Now that there's other ways that you can earn research points, they're allowing you to start accumulating those points any way you can, any way that you find to earn them, but you can't actually spend them until you've unlocked access to the Bureau. So this is actually a nice change because it means that as you earn those points along the way, they're not lost or wasted. Of course, we had Black Friday in November. 5 Black Friday ships this time. That's Kearsarge, Napoli Mines, Chikatov, and Shinonome. I was really surprised to see Shinonome on this list because Shinonome is a campaign reward. Yes, campaigns are still in the game. She's the reward for the newbie campaign that challenges you to play through about I think it's up to about tier 8 ships and unlock and do a variety of things. At the end, you get a nice little tier 6 Japanese destroyer. That's not too bad, and that's Shinonome. And now they were selling that ship for the first time, which I thought was not necessarily good or bad, just different and interesting. Some more balance tweaks. Of course, we went in and we nerfed Ryujo. Again, I'm shocked. And then Renowned, Monarch, and Lion all had some changes to their main battery. Monarch and Lion getting changed to their main battery honestly didn't surprise me, because Monarch's main battery has been honestly a bit of a joke for a long time. Lion's has always felt better to me, but these buffs, in my opinion, are still very, 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 very overdue. The British battleship line, the base battleship line, is not nearly as enjoyable to play as the battlecruisers. And then, of course, as we head into 11/11 on Pearl Harbor Day in December, it's time for the Christmas Crate event, right? Now, they made some changes to this year that I really, really liked. Previously, I think it started this year. I forget if it started this year or last year, but like now you can earn multiple ships at once, which is a godsend, instead of having to sit down and slog through playing, 200 ships and just slam those games out in co-op, which was the fastest way to do it, Now you can play whatever ship you want to play, and if you perform well enough, if you have a good game, you can earn the rewards for 3, 4, 5, 6 ships at once, whatever it is, and that is super handy. It allows you to get through things much quicker. Of course, the community events that have been coming and going with some of these early release events, they introduced one here at Christmas time, which is always fun. Those are actually really enjoyable because they encourage everybody to log in and play and contribute and try to earn some rewards for the server, right? For their fellow players. It's always enjoyable. New dockyard. It was Christmas time for new dockyard. So we had Tier 9 German, quote unquote, super cruiser there, Admiral Schrader. And then along the way, as you worked your way up through the various dockyard stages to earn or unlock your chance at Admiral Schrader, you could also pick up Tier 6 British battlecruiser Renowned 44, which is not my favorite ship, if I'm honest. But Schrader is actually pretty enjoyable. I've had a couple of good games in her. She's kind of fun. Early access to the Japanese light cruiser is continued through this patch, which means that as we get into the first quarter video, they'll come into full release here in the first quarter of 2023. We had some brawls, of course, as they've been doing that every patch off and on now, and we had a community bounty event. Now, this is something that players may not realize, so I'm going to highlight it here. Bounty events have been going on in World of Warships, at least on the NA server, for forever, right? This was something the community team invented back when the Corgi fleet was a thing, and Super Nico Power was our community manager. This was like 2016, right? It's a long time. But organizing one of those events was a ton of manual labor, okay? And that continued through anytime they did a bounty event up until the last year and a half. They've been slowly adding community tools into the back end for the community managers on each of the different servers to organize, run, and manage these bounty events effectively and better. And now this one was kind of like, I think, the rollout for, we don't even have to give you a press account anymore. We just flag your main account as participating in this bounty thing. You do it, and then your rewards are like automatically tabulated and automatically sent to you. So they can now do this more regularly, and I think that's really awesome because it's great. It's a good community event. Like the community bounties have always been a really, really cool. We added Tier 10 Dutch Destroyer Tromp to the armory for, I think, about 250,000 coal or so, if that's your bag. I'd also missed that they had added some tutorial missions. I'm kind of curious now. I'm wondering if maybe I'll go create a new account and showcase these on stream one night, just because I'm curious to have a look at them. They only appear if your account has less than 300 battles. As long as your account has less than 300 battles, you have access to these tutorial missions. And I am genuinely curious what they look like, because I do not know. They made some spawn improvements to pretty much every map in the game. This was, again, something that's long overdue. Some maps in certain situations, you would spawn in just insane, crazy locations, way to the east, way to the west. 2 ships on the 10 line all by yourself, while the nearest ships are on the 7 line. Like, you'd see this, and it was like, what? Who thought this was a good idea? This is dumb. So they finally went through and did a pass and tried to remove instances of that happening. To my knowledge, it can probably, I don't think it can happen anymore, but I'm sure somebody out there would prove me wrong if I definitively said it shouldn't happen again. So I'm not going to say that, but the goal was to reduce instances of that happening. And from what I've been able to tell, they've been pretty successful. And then they also added Dalarna and Clausewitz. That's the Tier 11 European super ship, Tier 11 European destroyer to the tech tree, as well as the Tier 11 German heavy cruiser, Clausewitz, all added to the tech tree as a part of this 11.11 patch. So let's have a quick go looking at server numbers. I do this every time. Quick refresher course. What you're seeing is the average number of players logged in per day per server. So literally, I'm boiling 90 days of data for any given server. The various low curves, the server population gets very low in the wee hours of the morning and slowly ticks up over the course of the day, usually hits its high in the late evening hours, and then slowly tapers off overnight, and then there's just an up-down cycle. So I'm taking the average, that number of averaged out over 90 days for each server. I'm boiling all that data down to one single number just to give us a general sense of how many people are logging in and playing on a regular basis. All right. So I'm an NA player. Like what we like to do, we like to start with the NA server, and here we are. Let me make a quick update to that. There we go. So last time we were talking about kind of the the static bit here, between second quarter and third quarter, we had not had a lot of change. You can see here moving into fourth quarter, we did have some change, and it wasn't good change. The NA community, you see it in the forums. In my mind, you see it on Twitter. You see it in the stream comments, right? When people come into the official streams and you pay attention to the comments, have really been, I won't say rejecting, but I'll say disapproving of the direction of the game for, well, quite a while now, haven't they? Right? This has been going on for a while. Fourth quarter wise, and you're going to see this again in a later slide, this is one of the worst fourth quarters that NA has basically ever had. It's not the worst because the fourth quarter of 15 was actually slightly below this, right? But after 7 years of the game, we're now almost back to where we were population-wise at launch, right? All the effort, all the marketing, all the time, all the money that's been spent, and you can see here, around 7,000 players equates to basically where we were for the first year of the game's life. So I can't say I'm really excited to see that here on the NA server. Now, on EU, things are a little better. They had a nice uptick, right? Things had kind of stagnated over second and third quarter here, and we had a bit of an uptick here in fourth quarter. And that's, again, I won't say fairly typical. Well, I would say fairly typical. That's fairly typical because, again, if you go back and you look at the graph, almost every fourth quarter, there's a nice little uptick on EU as players come back, fourth quarter or first quarter, depending on the timing of the freebies. But players come back and play enough over the holidays to pick up their free loot, their free super crates, which may have ships, which may have steel, whatever, that sort of thing. And so you see that again here on the EU server. So a nice little recovery that gets them, gets their curve, their trend line there a little improved. Things continue to look bad for RU. Again, the broken record. We've hit yet another low. We're now, the glory days of RU basically were the first couple of years the game was live. RU more or less seemed to have radically rejected the carrier rework. Very, very low numbers for them at the time over the summer of 19 when that was coming in. Minor recovery here in 2020. But this is interesting, and I'll point this out, right? Almost every other server had big spikes, big population recoveries in second and third quarter of 2020. And Russia didn't. They're the only server that basically didn't have big population spikes over the summer of 2020. The population sort of held steady for a while, and now we're back firmly in the down column, yet again hitting a new low. So again, I mentioned this last video, the game in RU, though we can see this data, is no longer managed directly by Wargaming, just like their deal with the Chinese server. After the Ukrainian invasion, they divested themselves of the Lesta Studios property that they had been running in St. Petersburg, and a whole bunch of people in that office left the country, have been moved elsewhere. I believe most, if not all, the people that were able to get out or wanted to go are now in Belgrade, Serbia. They stood a new office up there, or in Prague, but I think it's mostly in Serbia because that's where the actual development team ended up. And now what's left of Lesta in St. Petersburg is just like a regional management company, like they manage the server for the game in Russia. Asia, which had been on a nice little uptick, you see there a nice solid downward. But I gotta say, I don't know that I'm super concerned by this. And the reason for that is we saw the exact same trend last year. Something about fourth quarter, the Asia server just doesn't react, doesn't play as much. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's depending on where you live in that part of the world. It's the one time a year that the weather is not scorching. I don't know. Like, I mean, I can't explain this. I just can't. Maybe if somebody who plays on the SEA server can help me understand why it is that the fourth quarter always seems to be the worst performing for you guys, I would genuinely be curious. I would love to know. But you can see this trend over the last three years, right? Fourth quarter of 20, bam. Nice recovery. Fourth quarter of 21, bam. Nice recovery. Fourth quarter 22, bam. So, like, something about fourth quarter just pisses Asia off. I don't know what it is, but if somebody can help me, I would love to know. And then, of course, the preceding 4 slides all here smashed into one, just so you can see the trend lines and each server's kind of ups and downs compared to everybody else, all in the same place. I think it's interesting to me now. You can see NA, Russia, and Asia all within a few hundred players of each other right here, and then EU, 5,000 plus more on a regular basis. So the EU server, the EU trend line is pretty stable, right? You even go back to pre-pandemic, you're looking at about 12 to 13,000 players a day on average. That's probably quite healthy. It's the other servers that I think are probably suffering. And, Russia, and again, I don't have population numbers for China, so I have no idea how popular the game there is. But those two servers stand alone. Right? They can't be integrated into this cross-server matchmaking thing that Wargaming has been testing. So there's a part of me that wonders, particularly for Russia, if all of the additional complexity that's been added to the game is going to make things even worse for them. So I don't know. We're just going to have to see. This slide, of course, is basically, if you take this slide and you just total everything up and you turn it into one graph, it looks like this. As I always point out, the Russia server has been dragging down this average for many, many years, but the game for the last few quarters has sort of stabilized at this 35,000 a day level. Again, that is an average. You have to remember that it's going to go, peak times on each server are going to have big highs, and then low times are going to have big valleys, because that's just the cyclical nature of online gaming. But so, I mean, if the game is sustainable with this at a global population level, then I guess that's okay. Now, as I always say, when I was originally building out this slide pack many years ago, I kept looking at the RU server and thinking, man, y'all are dragging things down. What happens if I take RU out? And this is what happens if you take RU out. The overall trend line is actually fairly positive. And you can see here, we're actually a bit up from the previous quarter globally in the non-RU servers, because Asia took a dip, but EU picked up the slack. So, and EU's pickup was actually enough to bump things up a bit. So again, holding steady here in the 27,000, 28,000 range. One of the things that I like to do, though, is look at a trend line. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. This is all the fourth quarters of the game on one slide. And as you can see here, this is, unquestionably the worst fourth quarter population that Wargaming has ever had in the game. I find that to be kind of concerning, right? Fourth quarter traditionally has a pretty good turnout. Certainly has over the last few years. You see there right around 40,000 players or so, because, again, Wargaming tends to drown players in free stuff. Hey, it's Christmas. Come get your free coal, free premiums, free whatever we're giving out this year, right? The first few years of the game, it was just straight up, play, do some missions and earn a free premium ship. Over the years, that's morphed into other things, but this is what we have now. And now it seems like even that's not quite enough to slow kind of the downward angle on this particular slope. And the very last slide, as it always has been, is our short-term trends. Now you can see there the EU line starting to flatten out a bit. The short-term trend pretty much leveling out around 13,000. Second and third quarter, not great for them, but fourth quarter back to something a little more historical. I'm willing to put money down that their first quarter will be as well. The question for me as we go into first quarter is going to be, does Asia rebound? Because traditionally their fourth quarter seems to be the last few years kind of crappy, and then in first quarter it comes right back. So did that happen this year? How bad is it going to get on RU? And then what's going to happen on NA, right? So to me, I think those are the big questions. Does Asia recover as they normally do as we go into first quarter? How bad is it going to get on RU? Like, is it going to stabilize, or is there going to be a bounce back of any kind, or is it just going to level out? And then the NA population has not been, I won't say healthy, but I'll say it's been going in the wrong direction for quite some time now. Is there anything they can do to reverse that trend at this point, right? It's frustrating for me to see that. It really is. I understand why. I get it. Believe me. Guys, I'm a player too. I understand exactly why people are down on the current state of warships. My frustration is that for so long, when we had more players, the community staff, the North American community team was like always perpetually understaffed, always understaffed for the workload that they have, for the player events they were trying to run, and so on. And now, after a couple of years of work and effort by Evan and the NA team, they've managed to put together a really good and what feels like more of a fully staffed group of people here on NA at the Austin office. We're going to start running player events again. And the game has taken a weird, these weird directional design changes. And the NA player base is just kind of like, nah, bro, we're not in on this anymore. So I don't know. I'm concerned about the long-term trends on NA. I really am. EU seems to be a little more flighty, but the long-term trends on NA are definitely concerning to me. So anyway, guys, let's talk in the comments. Let me know what you think. Y'all wash your hands, be safe, and I'll catch you next time.